I cannot access the documentary itself, but that might be a blessing. What I can offer is my appraisal of it. Forbidden History is one of those programs that chooses sensationalist subjects which, after viewing, leave the audience disappointed, in my view. In the third series, transmitted on the Yesterday channel, the program in question was about vampires. Had all the ingredients of a topic that would hold the viewer's attention, inevitably and inexorably, by the time it reached its climax, with the Highgate case at the top of the vampire menu. Disappointment was all they could evoke. I wrote 41 minutes into the program, a black and white photograph of me appears for 7 seconds. Needless to say, I'm the exclusive copyright holder of that image, which shows me standing by the North Gate in Swains Lane, Highgate. To add insult to injury, my image has been used in the program to support the words of David Farrant, whom I had been told prior would not be appearing in the documentary. The photograph has clearly been filched from somewhere I have had it legitimately published. If I was to be airbrushed from the coverage of the Highgate Vampire case, my photograph should not have been used at all. When Andrew Gorf, a personal friend of David Farrant for some years, first approached me about this documentary, I think circa 2015, something like that, he assured me that Farrant would not be interviewed. Having been a contributor to television for well over half a century, I naturally take nothing I am told at face value. I feel that my persona has been seriously abused by linking me to anything claimed by David Farrant. Most of the section on Highgate is misleading and factually inaccurate. There is quite enough evidence on public record to have avoided this occurring. Even if you expurgated, as you clearly have, all reference to those who actually investigated the case. Sincerely, Sean Manchester. The message received from Andrew Gorf had said, "The director of yesterday's channel's Forbidden History has asked me to reach out and ask if you would appear in a documentary about vampires. They need someone who believes in the Highgate Vampire. I've worked with him quite a bit and can vouch for him being a great guy. Interested?" David, a reference to David Farrant, will not be interviewed. I quickly came to realize many years ago that interviewers, regardless of the subject, simply do not know the right questions. And the questions are every bit as important as the answers. Another problem in the new century has been one of trust. Seldom have I encountered an interviewer in recent years who keeps his or her word. Consequently, any condition I might have set for providing a contribution was inevitably and frequently compromised. Without trust and a sense of honour, there is nothing. I cannot interact in that way and would rather stay silent than witness yet another agreement broken. I am still having to regularly turn down television and radio interview requests, along with a plethora of other invitations to partake in projects that would maintain a perception of me remaining a public figure. Despite Andrew Gorf's assurance that David Farrant would not be interviewed, in actual fact, Farrant was the only contemporary person who was interviewed about the vampire goings-on at Highgate. Others who offered their opinions throughout the programme, whether about Highgate or not, were hardened sceptics who view everything in purely materialistic terms. They approached the subject of vampires from a scientific point of view. The problem with that is that the supernatural cannot be approached in this way because it transgresses the laws of science. "34 minutes into the documentary, it finally reaches what a lot of people will have been waiting for when they started to watch. The case, of course, of the Highgate Vampire. What the viewer ends up with is a young American woman proclaiming that the vampire story is the ultimate British B-movie, with someone running around claiming he's chasing vampires. While this is being stated, the viewers are shown Roger Simpson's article about David Farrant's penchant for sacrificing cats in Highgate Woods that appeared in the Hornsey Journal, 13th of August 1973, which has nothing whatsoever to do with the case of the Highgate Vampire. Forbidden History is careful not to reveal the article's headline: "Cat's Throat Slit During Witchcraft Ritual in Woods." Next, while being shown posed images from Titbits magazine of David Farrant prancing about in Highgate Cemetery, we are told a group of ghost hunters in the 1960s, and one of them spent the night there and believes he saw a ghost, a figure dressed in a cape wandering through the cemetery. This is clearly a reference to Farrant, who did not describe anything dressed in a cape, and whose wife at the time, Mary, stated under oath at the Old Bailey during his criminal trials in 1974, "We would go in, frighten ourselves to death and come out again. It was just a silly sort of thing that you do after the pub shut." Mrs. Farrant added that her husband's friends who joined in the late night jaunts were not involved in witchcraft or the occult. We are then told about Satanists who broke into Highgate Cemetery, exhumed a corpse, and hammered a metal stake through the coffin lid and through the heart of the person in the grave, none of which happened, needless to say. Yet, as the viewer is told about these Satanists, they are shown simultaneously. A 1972 photograph of David Farrant and Victoria Jervis being arrested in Monk and Hadley churchyard in High Barnet, which of course holds no connection to the Highgate case. Viewers are at last treated to something that at least vaguely relates to the cemetery vampire case, albeit in a sensationalist article by Barry Simmons in the Evening News, 16th of October 1970, covering the antics of David Farrant, where he is portrayed as a rank amateur with a protective cross comprising of 2 twigs held together by a shoelace, plus a Sainsbury's carrier bag for his stakes. Presenter of Forbidden History, Jamie Theakston, informs viewers that he has come to Highgate to meet David Farrant. But Farrant, who hadn't lived in Highgate for 4.5 decades, he actually lives in Muswell Hill, Theakston disregarded and interviews him in his bed-sitting room at the top of a house in the house is, what was, at 142 Muswell Hill Road. He asks Farrant what it was he saw that night inside Highgate Cemetery. But Farrant's original letter to the editor of the Hampstead Highgate Express explicitly states that it was while walking along Swains Lane as he passed the North Gate that he saw something on the other side of the iron railings. A description of something as tall as the iron North Gate is alleged, while simultaneously the massive stone arch leading to the Circle of Lebanon, which is at the heart of the graveyard, is shown on screen. While all this is being explained, the image of Farrant armed with a crude wooden cross and a stake emerges on the screen. Farrant has always insisted that he doesn't believe in vampires, and never has. At least never has seriously sought them out. This is not a revelation made on Forbidden History. As a press cutting of the outcome of his criminal trials at the Old Bailey is shown, Theakston asks Farrant why he was arrested and allows Farrant to get away with answering, "I was arrested and charged with indecency in a churchyard." True. He was found guilty of indecency in 1972, but the press cutting related to his trials 2 years later, at which he was found guilty of desecration, tomb vandalism, relating to Highgate Cemetery, threatening witnesses with black magic in an attempt to pervert the course of justice. In the trial of a self-proclaimed Satanist who was and still remained his colleague, possession of a firearm and ammunition, plus theft from a hospital, none of which is mentioned or alluded to by Jamie Theakston or anyone else, apart from one press cutting throughout the whole documentary. At this point, Andrew Gorf, whom you see on screen now, proclaims that Farrant headed the British Occult Society and had a really important role in the whole Highgate Vampire story. Nothing could be further from the truth. He's the one going into the tombs and uncovering the fact that satanic rituals were going on there. He's the one who identifies this entity as trying to be manifested, and he's the one who kind of goes on this journey to find the vampire. Or so claims Andrew Gorf, pictured with David Farrant in Farrant's Muswell Hill bedsit. The girl at the centre of the photo is an acquaintance of Gorf's, whose curiosity must have got the better of her. The fact is that Farrant was exposed by the British Occult Society from very early on. He had absolutely no connection with that organisation beyond pretending to be associated to bolster his own publicity. Newspapers invariably added to any such claim he made with the prefix self-styled. Far from being the one who uncovered satanic rituals in tombs, Farrant was found guilty by a jury at the Old Bailey in the summer of 1974 of causing the satanic symbols and thereby rituals in tombs. Goff's claim that Farrant was on a journey to find the vampire is perhaps the most absurd and preposterous statement of all. Farrant has spent most of his life strenuously denying the existence of vampires. Curiously, to this day, and I'm quoting Goff now, there are reports in Swains Lane of civilians reporting to the police a tall man walking across the street with dark, piercing red eyes, walking across the street and through the wall, claims Andrew Gorf near the end of the documentary. This is untrue, as the police themselves will be quick to confirm. There have been no credible witnesses since the 1960s and early 1970s. Recent claimants have turned out to be associated with just one man, the late David Farrant.